Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Weekly Coder. I'm Chris, and this week we are going to continue on with our Minesweeper tutorial. We are on part 3. So, the last week, we added the graphics for the mine and for everything else. We created a prefab for the mine, and we imported all these other graphics. So I know I already said that. So we also made sure that the pixels per unit on each of the graphics was set to 64, and that we were at point no filter for the filtering mode. We will test this and make sure it's still working. Alright, so we've got our random mines being placed throughout the board. Cool. And let's make sure there are 10. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Good. Alright. So, the next thing we need to do is we need to actually add in these tiles. The 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way to 8. And these basically will represent the clues. And by clues, I mean we have mines, right? And let's say, for instance, that well, let's pick on this corner specifically. This is the very bottom. So let's go into scene view and just kind of simulate what this should look like. So let's see if we can do this. Let's put that one there. And there. Okay, so then this should kind of look like this. There. So if we look at the game view, and pardon the the tiles not being aligned. So basically, this one tells us that there is one mine around this tile, which is incorrect because there are actually two mines around this tile. So let's go back. Let's remove this one. Let's put a 2 here. So 2 here. And this would also be a 2. There's 2 mines around here. This one would be a 1. This one would be a 1. I don't know what I was thinking here. This one would be a 2. And this one would be a 2. And if you're not following along, if you're not getting it, that's fine. This one would be a 1. Alright, and just for the sake of I'm just using vertex snapping here to align these, make them look nicer. So if we go to here, The way this looks is what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to check all the tiles. We're going to have to know if the tile is a mine. And then if the tile is a mine, actually no. We're going to check each cell. And then if the cell is not a mine, then we're going to check the surrounding cells and count how many mines are surrounding the cell that we're currently on. So let's say that we're in this loop. And this will be just a basic XY coordinate loop, right? We loop over Y for every X, and then we loop over Y again for every X until we looped over all the Ys. So our first loop will put us in this position, right? And this one is at, should be 0, 0. Oops. 1, 0. Ah, that's right, because 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, there's one more down here. So this is right. This is Y1. So that's not the very bottom. So anyways, so 1, 0. Let's just pretend like this is 0, 0, right? We start there, and then we say, oh wait, this is a mine, so obviously this can't be a clue tile. So then we get to the next one, and we say, hey, let's see. Okay, this is not a mine. So, right, there's nothing there. Nothing. There's no cell, no nothing, right? So what we do then is we say, hey, we need to see how many mines are around this cell here, this tile. So what we do is we say we're going to check the left. We're going to check the up and to the left. Then we're going to check up. Then we're going to check up and to the right, and then we're going to check up and, or then we're going to check to the right. Now, we also need to make sure that we don't check out of bounds properties, right? So we don't need to check anything below 0, and we don't need to check anything less than 0. We also don't need to check anything higher than 8 or higher than 8 on the right side. So X higher than 8, Y higher than 8, because we're going from 0 to 8. Which gives us 9 tiles. So what we'll do then is, since these are going to be named 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, we are literally going to instantiate the prefab based on however many mines we count. So we're going to need a variable to keep track of the number of mines that we've counted, and then based on how many mines we've found around that cell, we're going to then call the instantiate statement, which is going to then take a path, right? A prefab path. And in that path, we're going to use the number of the tile. So if we've counted 2 mines, we instantiate the 2 prefab. Right? Simple enough. So the only thing that we need to do now, and we may be able to just get away with this for now because we haven't put any other tiles into the array. So naturally, if there is something in the array, like here, like if we get to this position, we check the array, and if it's not null, then we know it's a mine, because we don't have anything else on the screen yet, okay? But no, that should work, and we shouldn't have to. At some point, we're going to have to make a script for the tiles, and we're going to have to assign properties to be able to tell it what kind of tile it is. So then we would tell it, hey, this is a tile. This tile is of kind mine, and this tile is of kind clue. This tile is of kind blank. This tile is of kind block. That kind of thing. So for now, I don't think we need to worry about it. So let's go ahead and jump into the code with the ideas that we actually, you know what? Let's create these prefabs first. So let's drag 1, 2, 3, oops, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And we'll go into the prefabs folder, and then we'll just do it again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh, and just so you know, this is how my brain is working. The entire time that I went from the top to the bottom, I literally thought, you know, it would have been more efficient if I would just have started from the bottom. I guess it doesn't matter. No, because you travel the same amount. So if I were to start with 8, I would have dragged it down. And then 7. And then 6. Rather than going 1, 2, 3. Eventually, let's see, because you travel up and you travel down. So eventually you travel the same amount of distance. Doesn't matter where you start. Oh boy. Alright, that's what OCD will do to you. So we've got our prefabs. So let's get rid of these. We don't need them in the scene. There. Good. So let's jump into our script. And let's create a new method. Start with that. And we're going to call this one place clues. Right? So after we finish placing the mines, which is after this for loop up here, we want to place the clues. So the first thing, let's do this. Let's do for int I equals, or let's just do this properly. For int y equals 0, right? Y is less than, let's go less than 9, and y plus plus. And then we're going to do the same thing for x. X equals 0. X is less than 9. X plus plus. All right. So for every x, for every iteration of x, we're going to loop over that. And then once we finish our x's, we're going to increment our y and then do the x's again, and then increment our y and do the x's again. So in order to do this, we need to first check our array, our grid array, to see if the basically if the location that we're at right now is null. Okay, so if grid xy equals null, that means nothing is here, can't be a mine, right? So we know for sure, because we've placed all the mines first, and there's nothing else that is being stored in the grid array other than the mines. We know that if we get a null back from that position, that we are in a space where there is literally nothing. So what we want to do is we want to check the spaces around it. Okay? So first things first, we're going to create a variable. And that variable is going to hold the value of how many mines we've counted. Okay? So the way that we're going to figure this out is we are going to just do a series of if statements testing each of the locations. Okay? So what we do is we say if grid x y, right, x, let's do left. You know what, let's make sure that we actually comment these. So the first thing we're going to check is north. Okay, and I'm going to use directionals just to keep things simple. So first thing we check is north. So how do we get north? We need to check y plus 1, right? So we say if grid x y plus 1, because we're incrementing y once to see if there's anything at the x location that we're at plus 1 in the y direction, okay? So if that doesn't equal null, that means it's a mine, okay? Then we say, okay, well, you know, if it's a mine, then we're going to say num mines plus plus. Because we're going to, we know that there's a mine there now. But we also want to make sure that we're not checking a y position that would be out of bounds of the array. Otherwise, we would get like an out of bounds message, an error message in Unity, and we don't want that. So we need to make sure that y plus 1 is not, is less than 9, right? So if grid x, actually we don't even need to do it. If y plus 1 is less than 9, that's literally that. So if y plus 1 is less than 9, then we check if the location in the array at y plus 1 and current x doesn't equal null. And if it does, then we increment the number of mines. So that's a pretty safe statement for us. What we'll do now is north, let's do east. And east is going to be if x is less than 9, or x plus 1 is less than 9, because that's east, so we're checking to the right. So then we say if grid x plus 1 y doesn't equal null, then we want to increment the number of mines. Let's move this up a little bit. Okay. Next, northeast, south. So again, we're going to check y. So this time it's going to say is y minus 1 is less than or equal to, is greater than or equal to, 0. So this time we need to make sure that we don't go below 0 in our array. So 0 we can go to, because 0 is a valid index in the array. So we also test to see if it's equal to. So not just greater than, but equal to as well. Otherwise, we would never get the 0 position here, because it would just like jump over that if statement completely. We didn't have to do that checking east. We're also not going to have to do it checking... Yeah, we're also anytime that we're checking against a higher number in the array goes from 0 to 8 because it holds 9 values. So we're checking if less than 9, because literally our values go from 0 to 8. Okay, I really hope that makes sense. I know sometimes it's hard to wrap your head around that, but trust me, it's good. So then we check if grid x y minus 1 doesn't equal null. Whoops. Autocomplete sometimes. So at that point, what we need to do is we need to say again num mines plus plus. And now we're going to check west. If x minus 1 is greater than or equal to 0, then if grid x minus 1 y doesn't equal null, num mines plus plus. Okay, so now we've got our north, east, south, and west. And now we're going to check the 4 corners. So those would be northeast, northwest, southeast, and southwest. So we're going to start with northeast. And northeast would be up and to the right. So if x plus 1 is less than 9, and y plus 1 is less than 9, because up and to the right, remember? If that's okay, then we're in the bounds of the array, and then we can check the position in the grid. So we'll check the same thing, x plus 1, y plus 1 doesn't equal null. Then we know, then we know that that location is a mine. All right. Yep. So then we'll check northwest. If x minus 1 is greater than or equal to 0, and y plus 1 is less than 9, because we're still going to check up. But we're also checking left. If grid x minus 1 and y plus 1 doesn't equal null, then num mines plus plus. Northeast. Alright, so where are we at now? We need southeast and southwest, and then we're done. Southeast will be to the bottom and to the right. So if to the bottom and to the right, so x plus 1 is less than 9, and to the bottom, y minus 1 is greater than or equal to 0. And then we check the grid. So that would be x plus 1, y plus 1 doesn't equal null. And we increment num mines. And finally, southwest, if x minus 1 is greater than or equal to 0, and y minus 1 is greater than or equal to 0, then we check the grid. X minus 1, y minus 1 doesn't equal null. And if it doesn't equal null, then we increment num mines plus plus. Right. So we're checking all the directionals. So what we have is we're placing our clues. Well, we're not really placing any clues yet. We are... Alright, so if grid xy equals null, if our current grid position equals nothing, then we check our next one. Ooh. So let's say this may not work the way that we think it might. Because oh man. Okay. For now, let's just go ahead and do what we got to do. At the very end, I don't like to waste unnecessary things, so we're going to check if num mines is greater than 0. And if num mines is greater than 0, that means that we need to place a clue tile. So we are going to instantiate, let's call this game object clue tile equals instantiate resources dot load, and we're going to give it our prefabs folder, and we are going to also pass in the num mines as a variable, and say type of game object. What is happening? Okay. And we are going to give it a position of the x and y value that we're currently at. So that'll be a new vector 3, x, y, and 0 for z. And then we are going to quaternion.identity. We're going to close that, and we're going to say as game object there. Okay, so that's going to place a clue tile if the number of mines is greater than 0. So for now, let's just run this. We're not going to add anything to the array just yet. So let's go ahead and see how this works for us here. Let's go back to Unity. Let's run that. So that's cool. That looks like, wait a minute. On 117? Outside of the array? Ah, nice. Because this is south, so it's y minus 1. Let's save that. And let's go back to Unity and run that again. Alright, no errors this time. Okay, so you see how it basically added all of these to the scene? You know that it worked because if you look at this 3, there are definitely 3 mines around this. Okay, the 2 has 2 mines around it. The 1 has 1 mine. This one has a mine. This one has 1 mine. This has 1 mine. This has 1 mine. This has 2 mines, right? 2 mines. 3 mines right here. 1, 2, 3. 1 mine. 1 mine. 1 mine. 1 mine. 1 mine. So all of these are placed accurately. They're good. Everything is working. So, but the thing is, and we'll get to this, I think, in a later episode, is we'll need to add these to the array so that when we check the array for, you know, whether something is a clue or whether something is a blank or whether something is a mine, we need to know what those are. That same time, we'll create that script that I was telling you guys about. So the next episode, we're going to spend a lot more time in Visual Studio to set up this code, and we're going to create a tile script that is going to be attached to all of our tile prefabs, and then we're going to create an enumerated property that is going to hold basically the value of what the tile is. So hopefully you guys got something out of this tutorial, and hopefully a lot of it made sense. You know, if you want to try your hand looking up maybe something along the lines of Conway Simulation, Game of Life, and you know, try to just kind of utilize this approach of checking the surrounding neighbors to see if you can come up with something cool to, you know, actually build that simulation in Unity. That'd be kind of neat if you guys, you know, want to try that out. I always like to try to use the knowledge that I've gained through some means, you know, whether it be a tutorial or whether I read a book or something, because a lot of times when you program something, you're programming it, yeah, but the basic algorithm can be used in, you know, many different things. So I urge you guys to continue to expand your knowledge as much as possible. Take what I teach you and or what you've learned and apply it to new things. And it's fun that way. It keeps you going. So anyways, that's enough rambling on. Like I said, I hope you guys enjoyed the tutorial. If you did, give me a thumbs up, comments down below. If you have any questions, like I said, comments down below. Patreon, it's always better to message me on there. I'm a little more active. Being able to respond to messages there. I don't always have time to check comments on YouTube. Plus, they like throw them in the spam sometimes, and they get missed. And so, yeah, Patreon's a better way to message me. The project, source code, everything that I've just gone over will be available to all of my patrons over on Patreon. Don't forget to click the bell for notifications, and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. Let's see, what else? I think that's pretty much it. So I'll see you guys next week. Take care.